Another big hurdle just got out of the way. Well, how the turns have tabled, my friends. In the ever-long pursuit of Microsoft trying to close the ABK acquisition, things are really progressing forward, and it really does look like Microsoft is going to get to close this deal. Now, we've already heard the leaked information from the EU, according to Reuters, and says, look, they're going to sign off on this deal with some caveats, but that's okay. And now the CMA, not leaked, not anything else, the CMA has come out and officially stated, well, it looks like they're going to approve the deal. And this is a massive change of events for Microsoft, because for a while, it looked like the UK was going to be potentially a lone holdout, barring what happens here in the United States. But as of today, as of their own words, it looks like they are going to be making they're going to be signing off on this. So the question becomes, what has changed? Remember, Microsoft had to put arguments in front of them, things that they were going to do. And the CMA came back and said, you know what, using our data and everything that was provided, we got it wrong, which is a big deal. So let's dive into what exactly they had said. So they posted up some information on their website, but I want to call out two specific paragraphs here. The first one says, the most significant new evidence provided to the CMA relates to Microsoft's financial incentives to make Activision games, including Call of Duty, exclusive to its own consoles. While the CMA's original analysis indicated that the strategy would be profitable under most scenarios, new data, which provides better insights to the actual purchasing behavior of Call of Duty gamers, indicates that this strategy would be significantly loss-making under basically any plausible scenario. On this basis, the updated analysis shows that it would be commercially beneficial, it would not be commercially beneficial to make Microsoft Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox following the deal, but the Microsoft will instead have the incentive to continue to make the games available on the PlayStation platform. Now, that's very logical. This has been the big befuddling thing that's kind of overtaken this whole argument. Microsoft's going to spend $70 billion, and then the first thing they are going to do is claw it off of another platform that is the biggest platform. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. But the CMA goes even further than that. So they said, having considered the additional evidence provided, we have now provisionally concluded that the merger will not result, and let me be clear, will not result in substantial lessening of competition in console gaming services, because the cost of Microsoft of withholding Call of Duty from PlayStation would outweigh any gains from taking such action. So that is not all that they have said. You can see here they put out a nice little statement that really digs in. Now, they certainly do continue to have their own concerns, and I fully expect that, much like the EU in the UK, they're going to have to sign some agreement to say, look, we're going to actually uphold these contracts. We are going to make sure that it is available on PlayStation if they want it, and that it is going to be on all these different platforms. And so Microsoft really does appear to be looking like, at least outside the US right now, have a clear path to actually closing this deal, which is a huge milestone for Microsoft. I'm sure that they are celebrating. And even Brad Smith, not Brad Sams, that's me. Brad Smith is the corporate lawyer for Microsoft. He says, we appreciate the CMA's additional detailed and objective analysis. Its update underscores, a growing consensus by those with access to the most concurrent data that this deal will create more competition in the console market, not less. That's pretty much what we all sort of understood here. Sony has a dominant position. Call of Duty is a big title, but by pulling that out, it's not going to reduce the competition in the marketplace. So that is very, very good news for Microsoft. Now, the UK CMA still has not issued their final ruling, but they do say that they are on track to deliver that in the month of April. So considering that April is roughly a week away, of course, a month is 4 weeks long-ish, something like that, we aren't too far away from getting their final sign-off. And I would expect that the EU is probably not too far behind. And really, the last holdout is going to be in the United States. And if Microsoft can get that through, then they're done. Of course, they're going to have to abide by the concessions. That is always going to be the big deal, and they have to live up to the promises. Remember, Microsoft's making a lot of promises, like 10 years on PlayStation. They're bringing it to Nintendo, maybe not necessarily the Switch, but they are bringing it, or agreed to bring it to the Switch in some capacity, right? They've got to bring their games to NVIDIA. And so Microsoft, it's going to be like one of those things, they sign off and it's like, whew, now we've got a lot of work to do, because we've got to live up to all these promises and these boundaries that the government entities have basically laid out. So it all boils down to the FTC, which I don't know how quickly that's going to move through. Remember, they provisionally, I believe, have a date set for August. Of course, things could happen before then. I'll be very interested to see what happens if Sony does come around and actually say, hey, look, okay, let's just cut our losses here because we lost in the EU, we lost in the UK, we lost, I think, in China too, and in Brazil, and I think even Dubai. The whole, basically every entity that's reviewed this says Microsoft, yeah, this actually makes sense. We know it's scary. That is the thing, is we know that it's scary for big old Microsoft to come in and buy up a huge company like this, but in the market that they are competing, it is not a scary thing. And at the end of the day, it does appear like it's going to be beneficial, and it does appear to be looking like it's going to close. So the CMA, that is very, very big news. Ooh, so the question becomes, like, what sort of concerns are outside of the competition? Like, I still think that Microsoft's biggest play here, I still believe fundamentally that the biggest thing that's going to get this through at the end of the day is this third-party app store that Microsoft is working on. And I think that's where we're going to start to see maybe some of these concessions also playing in, because the last thing that any of these entities want to happen is like, okay, so now we have a Google App Store, we have an Apple App Store, and now we have a Microsoft App Store. That is not great. Granted, that is one more option on both platforms that is good. It will be interesting to see if a Google Store shows up on iOS and an Apple Store show up on Google. But that being said, the Macs having 3 app stores, while that is much better than 1, these entities most likely do not want them to be locked into the big 3 tech players that are in the space already. So I would expect to see potential other considerations around Microsoft bringing games to other platforms, because we all know that Microsoft's strategy is right now, according to Phil Spencer, to keep your eyeballs on March of 2024, when I can't remember, it's Digital Marketplace Act, I think, in the EU potentially might go into effect if it doesn't get held up in court and sued by Google and Apple and everybody else. Third-party app stores will be available, and Microsoft wants to be day one ready, like they do with their Game Pass, to launch an Xbox App Store. But again, I think the EU and the UK CMA, and probably even here in the US, don't want Microsoft to be the dominant game platform, because that sort of goes against everything else. And so potentially those games might have to be available in other stores as well, so they can't lock it in. But we all know the value in Microsoft and what they do is actually the Game Pass offering. And so that will be a leverage point for Microsoft to kind of contain that, what we call building a moat, to making it harder to compete. But either way, getting an app store onto these platforms, if they are successful, I think Call of Duty is a big backer. And if you look at the marketplace of objects and size and everything else, gaming consoles are a very small sale component compared to apps on basically iOS and Android devices. Like, those app store markets are way bigger than console sales. And so by Microsoft being able to get on there, they need big titles to attract people out of the stores, because you're going against ingrained behavior at this point. And so I think they're saying, like, look, even if there was just a little bit less competition on the console side, we expect that there's going to be significant more competition on the App Store side. And for both of these entities, in the US, so all the entities should be looking at that and saying, like, look, getting more competition in the mobile market space is a bigger deal than getting it in the legacy console space. And I think that is how this is going to end up getting pushed through. So there you go. There you go, my friends. As always, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the only BS on this channel is me.